I'm harvesting the lessons that were planted by the fear. Internal fire climbing higher through the smoke. The city tries to bind us, but the spirit never broke. Keep your eyes on the horizon, keep the engine in the grid. We rise above the concrete, yeah, we never gotta quit. We rise above the concrete, yeah, we never gotta quit. The pressure is a polish, it's a grind that never ends. I see the truth in strangers while they lying to their friends. I'm a architect of ambition, sketching maps in the dark. Every spark from the friction is a flame that leaves a mark. Success ain't a finish line, it's just a state of mind. Leaving all the heavy baggage of the yesterday behind. I'm focused on the craft, keep the vision crystal clear. Eliminating doubt until I'm deaf to every sneer. Yeah, it's a marathon, a sprint, it's a rhythm in the heat. Writing chapters of the legend on the ledger of the street. Internal fire climbing higher through the smoke. The city tries to bind us, but the spirit never broke.
All right, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. I wanted to bring this to you guys' attention. I know for quite some time I've been hitting on this particular point, that the unemployment rate for Black Americans is teetering around 7.3, 7.6%, one of the highest that we have been in quite some time. And a lot of people are contributing this unemployment rate to Donald Trump, rightfully so, by the way. But this is not the same President Trump that was in office between both, the Biden administration and the Obama administration. This is not the same President Trump that we're seeing here. Don't forget that President Trump first tried to run on the Democratic ticket. And for quite some time, President Trump was stating prior to that he's been Democrat, even though he's been a millionaire / billionaire ever since he came on the public scene. So this is very important that we calm down some of the changes that President Trump has been through. In my opinion, I believe that he's been radicalized because for quite some time, President Trump, you've seen him around different sorts of groups of people. Prior, during the whole apprentice stage, he was around more Black people, essentially. He had a lot of quote unquote Black associates. I can't really know if they were friends, but you don't really see that anymore. And not to say that what most people will allude to that he's a racist because of some of the racist policies that he's enacted. Would I call that a stretch? No, because I think the proof is in the pudding. Is based upon statistics and analytics. And here on Blacklogic, what I try not to do is be emotional about the information that I provide for you guys. I try to back it up, by math, so to speak, because again, one of the ongoing racial tropes is that the reason why a lot of these DEI policies and these woke policies is predicated upon race and sexual orientation. And now that that's been eradicated, that is why you're starting to seeing a lot of Black people being laid off, is because they didn't get it on merit. They didn't get it on, their experience in education, which is absolutely false, just giving, the information. I digress, but I did want to show you guys before I really get into my monologue here. I want to show you guys just some statistics. Should I have that loaded? Give me a second here. Make sure I ring this up for you guys. Okay. Yeah, I want to give you guys some statistics here because I think it's utterly important that we erase emotions and, propaganda and rhetoric from the equation altogether. And I will hope that there's a lot of people out there who not only have common sense, but they can think non-emotionally, right? You're going to have your emotions. You're going to have your thoughts and ideas of how you feel about certain people, certain groups, or what political party did what to what demographic of people. But let's just base everything off the statistics, right? And again, we like to look at verifiable sources because, no Wikipedia. Anybody can just type anything on Wikipedia and you donate a couple of dollars, okay? So here we go. The white unemployment rate under the Biden administration dropped to a low of 3.4% and hovered around 3.5 to 3.7 for most of his term. Under the Trump administration, it fell to a pre-pandemic low of 3.1% before peaking at 14.2 during the COVID-19 shutdowns. Now, white unemployment rate under President Trump during his first term, 2017 to 2021. At the start of it, it was 4.3. The lowest was 3.1. And then at the peak during the COVID-19 crisis, 14.2. And then at the end of the term, it dropped down to 5.7%. Okay. Now with President Biden at the start of the term, 5.7%. Post-pandemic lows at 3.4%. And then it was teetering. It was going back and forth between 3.5% and 3.7%. Okay. Now, Black unemployment rate under President Trump, starting rate January 2017 at 7.6%. Record low was 5.3%, okay, which was roughly 2 years later. The impact of the pandemic soared to a peak of almost 17% of Black Americans being unemployed, and that the ending rate was 9.9. So again, if we look at the ratio of 9.9 versus at the end of President Trump at the white demographic unemployment at 5.7. So we're looking at roughly 4% a differential rate. Now, when it comes to the national unemployment rate for white Americans, it's currently 3.7%. I want you guys to think about that. So even during this time, if I go back to your first, start of the term was 4.3 under President Trump. Start of the term was 5.7. Now, President Biden got it down, the white unemployment rate down to 3.4 at the lowest. And here we are right here in 2026. We have AI, we have advanced technology, we have tariffs, we have all these people getting laid off. But again, the proof is in the numbers. So Biden was 3.4. Trump, even with the current economy, with tariffs, with AI, with massive layoffs, with Doge, all those cuts, 3.7%. So 0.3%. And if you guys ever took statistics, we understand there's an error margin, an error rate of 0.3. Okay. So roughly, they are exact. So white people, their unemployment is at the same rate, same ratio, same percentage that it was under President Biden. Now, as we look at this, the Black unemployment rate, 7.3%, right? And I've heard some reports at 7.6%. Again, you have that error margin of 0.3%. Black men being at the highest, 6.9%, Black women at 6.5%. And then if we go back here to the different administrations, at the lowest under President Trump, you saw 5.3, and under Biden, you saw 4.8. So if we, again, take the numbers, let's take President Trump, okay, at the lowest is 5.3, and now currently we're at 7.3. So a 2% increase. So this is why I believe to some degree that President Trump has been radicalized by the Heritage Foundation, amongst, that's the only organization that comes to mind with this whole project. What was the name of it? Project 2025, something like that. I forgot the name of it. Project 2025. In cohesion with his, Project 2025. I think that was if you guys correct me if I'm wrong. I want to make sure, because you had the Heritage Foundation manifesto that came out, which they're just making America more white. They're putting Black people, they're keeping Black people at the bottom. But now we're looking at roughly 7.3 to 7.6% of unemployment for Black Americans, right? Again, one of the highest unemployment rates, that is, if we don't include COVID-19. This is what you call Black unemployment as early as of this year, that these numbers were essentially being recorded. Not national unemployment, which cites around 4%, but just Black unemployment. Because when you look at the national rate of all Americans, you're going to read 4%, because we're the third largest demographic in America. You have whites, you have Hispanics, and then you have Blacks. So just Black unemployment is at that 7.3%. So some people, I don't want people to get confused when they look at the national average of unemployment for America, is going to teeter around 4 to 4.5%. So we're looking at 7.6%, 7.3%. And here is what the economists say. If that number reflected the national average, we would already be in an official recession. You see what I'm referring to? But because our numbers are deflated because they are encompassing other demographics of people, it doesn't seem that bad when you look at a national average. It would be emergency congressional hearings, primetime presidential addresses if this was to occur to the whole entire nation. But when it comes to Black America, when we hit those numbers, when our unemployment is nearly double the national rate, it doesn't make the front page. Okay, so today I'm going to show you that this is not an accident. This is not bad luck. This is not DEI. This is not affirmative action. This is not the economy being, this is not the economy being the economy. This is manufactured, and I have the receipts. Because the State of the Dream in 2026 report from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, which is a research institution, not an advocacy group, concluded that 2025 was a year of economic reversal for Black America. They are calling it directly a Black recession. Black unemployment jumped from 6.2% in January of last year to 7.5% by December of last year, a 1.3 percentage point increase in a single year. And by Q1 of this year, it hit 7.6%. Black women's unemployment hit 6.3% in January. Compare that to 3.4% for white women. It nearly doubled, okay? Researchers estimate that if Black workers had maintained their 2024 prime age unemployment rate, 260,000 more Black adults would have been working in 2025. 260,000 people, not statistics. We're talking about people, families, rent, groceries, children, security, all gone, all wiped away under this administration. Between September 2024 and January of 26, the federal workforce shrank by 12%. Roughly 271,000 federal jobs were eliminated in less than a year. Who did that hit the hardest? Was it Hispanic workers? Was it white workers? Was it Asian workers? No, it was Black workers, disproportionately Black workers, because for generations, federal government employment was one of the primary pathways through which Black Americans entered the middle class. When private industry was redlining Black workers out of good jobs, the federal government was a more level playing field, right? They had to adhere to federal law, not perfect, no less, but more accessible. That pipeline is being demolished. And here's another thing. This is my own personal opinion. Let me point that out. This is my own rhetoric, what I'm about to state here. Majority of white people who go to college, they don't want to work for the government because they know you don't really make any good money, right? You don't really make any good money in the government unless you were like a GS 10 or GS 11 or 12. GS 9 and below, you're really not making that good of money. But if you go to corporate America, you make hundreds of thousands of dollars. Right? You rise through the ranks. You have your business degree, your accounting degree, whether it be a BA or a master's degree. They know that you make more money in the private sector than the government sector. So if that sector is predominantly white, where do Black people have to go? They go to the federal government. They go to the state governments. Okay. So when you just look at the difference in that, we understand why Black people were represented disproportionately in federal and state governments. It's because majority of white people with education, okay, both having education, right? Both of them having, degrees, whether it be bachelor's degrees or master's degrees. They just attack different sectors because even though Black people were still applying for a lot of these corporate jobs, they wasn't getting them. They were not getting them, not because they wasn't qualified. They just wasn't being picked up for whatever reason. We know the reason. But this is the reason that I believe. So again, I don't have statistics to show you on that, but I'm pretty sure I could bring some up, but I won't. I just want to stay on track here, ladies and gentlemen. But this is the way that the federal government, you have a exorbitant amount of Black applicants who are qualified and educated and taking up a lot of these, taking these jobs, essentially applying for these jobs and getting these jobs, because there really wasn't that many white, Hispanic, or Asian people applying for government jobs. Who wants to work in government? Not too many people, right? You got your politicians, but that's just a different. We're talking about the tacticians. I call tacticians the ones who just administrators, right? They're working on a computer, they're filling out forms, they're checking you, and you wonder why the government is moving so slow. The government has outdated systems, right? You have all this bureaucracy, you have a lot of red tape, but a lot of people like to attribute that, there's a lot of Black people working in the government. No, you got to understand, federal laws, you have to understand federal legislation, policies, regulations. It's so many barriers in government. But nevertheless, a lot of people were disproportionately represented because these are the pipelines that they were utilizing in order to gain work and have opportunities as well as career. That pipeline, by the way, is being demolished. In a lot of regards, some people would state that it is demolished. See, Black women specifically lost over 95,000 federal government jobs last year, about 1/3 of the entire federal workforce contraction. They absorbed by Black women. This is not a coincidence. This is what target economic displacement looked like. And some people was like, well, they got rid of DEI. And again, and I don't want to play the whole right versus left. We don't play that on here. Both of them, they just handle things very differently. It's not they try to equate DEI to race and gender. And it's never been that, because again, we look at all of the statistics, the Department of Labor are the ones who come out with these numbers. And I'll show you one of the first things, right? If you look at the bottom, this is cite my sources. This information is coming from the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Federal Reserve Economic Data, right? FRED. Then you look at here again, BLS again, right? The U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis. These are all reputable, verifiable statistics that are coming from these governmental sources. Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis, Economic Policy Institutes, okay? So again, I'm not just shooting you guys hot air. I don't do that. I just want to give you guys the numbers, because regardless if you care about it or not, this is just the reality that we currently live in. Now, when you layer on top of everything that you guys been hearing so far and the so-called DEI rollbacks, now I want to make this perfectly clear. I'm not stating that Black people did not benefit from DEI, but the biggest beneficiaries of DEI has been white people, explicitly white women. That report have come out on many news channels. It's been verified by the Department of Labor and Statistics. And this is one of the reasons why the Trump administration is deleting, eradicating, they totally getting rid of statistics altogether. Like, let's not track it. That way we don't know. And if we don't know, we don't have to do anything about it. That's racism at its best, in my opinion. Because on day one, Trump signed Executive Order 14151, ending all federal DEI programs, followed by Executive Order 14173. I give you the number so you can look it up for yourself. Ending illegal discrimination, okay, and restoring merit-based opportunities. Here's the point I'm making about the whole federal government and corporate America. When the federal government eliminated roughly 300,000 jobs, why didn't the unemployment rate for white Americans increase? As I stated before, majority of white Americans with degrees, they don't even try to apply for federal government jobs. They're like, what? I got a degree in this, I got a degree in that. Why would I go work for the government and making $50,000, $60,000, or $70,000? I can go work in Silicon Valley. I can go work at these large corporations, JP and Morgan, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I can at least making $85,000 coming right out of college. And if I from a Ivy League school like Harvard and Yale and Brown and MIT and all these other schools, I could probably make double the amount. I can make $140,000 coming right out of college, right? Top of my class, cum laude, all these other things, right? So when we look at that, that's why it affected Black people the most. And this is why it was being attacked. But they tried to say it's wokeism. And then again, saying woke or wokeism, like Ron DeSantis from Florida, it was a pejorative term and a racial trope, just like DEI, because that's what people were yelling from the rooftops. It was to assist Black people who were not that intelligent, who try to level the playing field. And that's why we have to implement a new sort of policy called meritocracy. They wanted to restore merit-based opportunity, where America has never been a merit-based sort of economy. It's always been nepotism. And this is my opinion again. It's always been nepotism. See, here's the thing. Are there poor white people? Yes. Are there poor Asian people? Not in America. Probably in their own country. Are there poor Hispanic people? Yes. But the majority of white people are not poor, but the majority of Black people are poor. And some people would like to allude, then why is that? Is it because of crime? Is it because of welfare kings and queens? And then nobody wants to peel the onion and say, why? What are the systematic issues that are preventing Black Americans to achieve the economic stability of their white counterparts? Nobody wants to get into the argument because we will have to go back in history, and nobody like, no, we're talking about today. We're talking about today. Let's look at the legislations. Look at the way that the legislations and the bills are being written and who they target the most. I never have to say white. I never have to say Black, but I know there's going to affect 80 to 90% of a particular demographic, and they so happen to be Black. Here's what this actually means. Federal contractors are now prohibited from conducting targeted outreach to vendors of color. The Minority Business Development Agency, which existed specifically to help minority-owned businesses access federal contracts, is being dismantled. The Joint Center estimates that these actions alone threaten between $10 billion and $15 billion annually in lost federal support for Black-owned firms. $10 to $15 billion a year annually, gone. And Howard University, the institution that produced your Kamala Harris, the reason why I say your Kamala Harris, because I wouldn't have voted for her, neither Donald Trump. I wouldn't have voted for neither one of them. Thurgood Marshall, Felicia Rashad, Tanisha Coates. The Trump administration announced it would not renew a $64 million payment, using it as a bargaining chip. And guess what, ladies and gentlemen? The federal government just didn't give subsidies to HBCUs. It gave it to PWIs as well. Remember Harvard crying about when Trump was like, I'm going to stop your funding? Yeah. So the federal government forks out subsidies to all these institutions, by the way. So again, some people are like, well, that was, they stopped giving our money to HBCU because that was DEI. Everything is DEI, affirmative action, or is woke, right? Oh, here's another one. You guys remember this one? Critical race theory. You guys remember that one? Critical race theory. That was a big one. Because America was teaching Americans about the racial past of Black Americans in this country. The discriminatory, barbaric behavior of this country. That doesn't mean all white people, okay? It means those white people who contributed and who was a part of it and their descendants. So here's where it gets even more dangerous, in my opinion. This economic assault is not happening in a vacuum. It's happening alongside a simultaneously attack on our ability to fight back politically. Now, they're not just doing these sort of racial maneuvering through legislations and policies, right? They want to make sure that we stay in the same economic positions that we've always been in, but they want to concrete. They want to make sure it's solidified, right? So that's why you see all these different regions and states that have been redistricted for a particular reason to upheave a lot of the Democratic seats. Am I a Democrat? No. Am I a Republican? No. I just believe in the truth. And people are hard because they're like, you need to pick a side. No, I don't need to pick a side. I just want to pick the side of truth because no one is really actually telling it. Not even because I heard she changed her stance. Okay, I'm gonna call our sister out. Candace on. Now she's talking about, oh, I don't play the right or left game. Was she listening to this channel? Probably not. But nevertheless, she don't want to play the right or left game. But for a long time, she was on the right, supporting the right. And people were talking about how intelligent she is and how intelligent. And then all of a sudden you had an epiphany. All of a sudden you came to a realization. No, all of a sudden they stopped paying you to lie. And you got hot on social media from doing all these other what they call it, propaganda mill stories, right? And they could be true, they could be false, right? Conspiracy theories, whatever you want to call them. She got really hot doing that, and then her friend, unfortunately, Charlie Kirk. I don't wish the murder or assassination of anyone. Got murked, and now she's been on that, so that's been hot as well. So when people was talking to me about Candace on this and Candace on that, I was like, yeah, she just changing her tune, just like anybody else who may possibly be losing the bag. Okay, let me get back on track. If I can recall correctly, I believe it was March 31st of this year, Trump signed an executive order titled Ensuring Citizen Verification and Integrity in Federal Elections. And what it did, it restricts mail-in voting by requiring ballots be received by election day, not just postmarked. If the postal service is slow, which in Black neighborhoods it disproportionately is, your legal cast ballot goes in the trash. Think about that. You voted, it was postmarked before the deadline, and they said, oh, trash. And then we have information that for some apparent reason, mail in Black neighborhoods is slower, right? And some people are like, because them Black mailmen, they out there lazy, sleeping in their trucks. I don't think all mailmen that operate in the Black community are Black, by the way. Just like not all Black policemen operate in the Black community, because there's a lot of white policemen. But you get the point that I'm making. But they were throwing these ballots in. They basically saying they're going to throw these ballots in the trash. And it also directs federal agencies to compile lists of U.S. citizens and instructs the Postal Service to only deliver ballots to voters on the federal approved list. And a federal government list determining who is approved to vote by mail, right? This is a way that you can carve the cake the way you want it because it's been federally mandated. A federal government list determines who is approved to vote by mail. Civil rights organizations, done in NAACP. But anyway, civil rights organizations say a large number of eligible Black voters will be wrongfully excluded from these lists. And if this week that we're currently in, starting up this week, I believe late last week, a federal judge allowed the order to stand. So it amazes me about these federal judges as well as the Supreme Court. When Democrats are in office, like your Biden, the Supreme Court supporting the administration. That's not how it's supposed to be. Trump administration comes in office, they're supporting everything he does. That's not how it's supposed to be. They supposed to be the beacon. They supposed to be the commander-in-chief of equality in America and make sure that no demographic of people are being discriminated upon in any regard. But that's not been the reality. See, federal jobs for Black workers have been eliminated. Black business support has been dismantled. HBCU funding has been cut. And now the pathway to political accountability has been narrowed before the midterms. This is not a series of unrelated policy decisions. This is architecture at its highest. And I know, before anybody goes on a tangent and say that, you're just being woke, you don't have no solutions. What do we do about it? I think that we need to know what's at stake in these 2026 midterms and why the Trump administration is trying to upheave, alleviate, delete, reposition a lot of these Democratic seats. The House, repositioning. The Senate, repositioning. positioning, state legislators, governors' races. If the voting rights executive order stands and Democrats don't retake at least one chamber, there is no legislative check on any of this for another 2 years. Whatever happened to a fair and balanced America? Well, just given, Black history in those regards, it's never been that for us, but it's even worse, right? Because granted, in both political parties, majority of those politicians are white, right? Democrats may have a little more Black politicians, but majority of Democrats, majority of Republicans are white. There used to be fair and equal fighting between the two political parties. These white people on the right, they want America to look like this. These white people on the left, they want America to look like this. So we had a balance of both. But now you're only going to see the right white America. You get it? The right white America is on the right. It's right and it's white. That's what we're talking about. Understand that the economic attack is designed to exhaust us. And granted, let me take one step back. Not all white Republicans agree what President Trump is doing legislatively. So I don't want to believe, I don't want you guys to think that I'm referring to all conservatives that are white, all conservatives and Republicans that are Black and other demographics of people. I'm not stating that, but a good majority of them, because they all kneel. They all bend the knee to President Trump's will, and everybody is falling in line. And if you don't fall in line and you're a Republican and you're white, he will destroy you, and they know it. That is why they're doing this. I don't believe all of them agree, but they are afraid. They are afraid of what he may do. Are there any brave conservatives out there that are fighting? Are there any brave conservatives? I know there's some. Don't get me wrong. Because again, we as the people, no matter who, what race, creed, gender you are, you should never, and this is my personal opinion once again, you should never pick a side. If you're reading Republican policies and it fit the bill of what you want to do with you, your family, your friends, whoever, then that's what you should vote for. Same thing with the Democrats. If you're reading the legislations, keyword reading, comprehending, understanding the legislation for the Democrats on the liberal side, and that is where you fall in line with, then that's who you should vote for. I don't want anyone to judge Republicans based on Donald Trump and what he's been doing. But at the same time, I know this is very contradictory. At the same time, I do want you to judge the GOP based upon them falling in line because of the threats of the president and what he may or may not do. But nevertheless, this economic attack is to exhaust us. Community economics, buying Black, pooling resources, supporting Black businesses is now an act of political resistance. Every time we say BD, Black, 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 do this, Black, 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 why do people get upset? No demographic of people, no race of people go out their way to buy Black. Hispanics mostly do business with Hispanics. Now, granted, we live in America. The majority of the people are white. You're going to do business with white people regardless if you like it or not. I'm not saying for anyone to be discriminatory, but just as a white person, a Jewish person, an Asian person, a Hispanic person are going to look for people that look like them so they can support their own communities. That's the only thing I'm stating. Let's do the same thing. Should we fight for DEI rollbacks in court and boardrooms? Would that reverse some of the federal legislative laws so we can garner and gain 270 to 300,000 jobs back? I'm just asking questions. I'm not saying enlarge government to a point where things are so slow, because it is. Can we get 200,000 jobs back to people who are qualified, not based upon race? I want to make sure that people understand this, not based upon race, based upon experience, qualification, and education. I think that's what we should do. I think that HBCUs need to be protected, whether it be Howard, Central State, Spelman, Morehouse. These institutions produce the leadership that Black America needs. When they are under attack, they need our voice and our dollars, not just nostalgia. And we also need to get registered to vote. Get your community registered to vote. And by the way, visit ourvoicevote.org. It is a very, very, very nonpartisan website that I created that help you get sped up on legislation, help you get sped up on political information. Because the people designing this architecture are counting on our exhaustion. It is not too late, but it will be if we stop paying attention. Because a lot of us like, man, this don't really affect me. This really don't bother me. It's coming to a place near you pretty soon here. Because believe it or not, Black unemployment, again, is at 7.3 to 7.6%. Roughly 300,000 federal jobs have been eliminated. That has disproportionately hitting Black workers. Why do you think they say, you know what, we're going to cut some of these positions in government? We're going to alleviate, we're going to delete, we're going to eliminate. Doge came in. And people were like, yeah. And now they wonder why the government moves so slow. It was already moving slow, by the way. They thought that when we cut a lot of the fat, right, we cut a lot of the so-called waste from these processes, that it was going to be more efficient and more productivity, and it was going to be a lot faster. No, you can't just go in and fire, let go, lay off 300,000 people and not be some sort of effect that you feel when you have to file your taxes or put in some sort of, federal paperwork or something. It's going to affect you, believe it or not. It's going to affect you. But we're talking about $10 to $15 billion in lost annual support for Black businesses just because of these legislations. $64 million were cut from Howard University. I'm a Washingtonian myself. I live right down the street from Howard University, a place where we used to go and watch the Bisons play all the time. Really good school, by the way. Howard University, really good school. HU, baby. Another thing, a voting rights executive order that is designed to purge Black voters from approved mail-in lists before the 2026 midterms. One thing they have not done, they planned this so damn good, it's working. Not only was the strategy, the planning, very meticulous, but the bullying, the fear mongering, and how they going about this is even better. It seems as though that the Supreme Court, who can't, their seats can't be removed, their seats can't be taken away from them, and they have them running, right? The Supreme Court justices, they can stay on the bench for eternity. They can die up there if they want to. They don't never have to retire. Isn't that crazy? A job that once you get appointed, you never retire. You don't have a term, but the president does. So who's the most powerful people in the land? Supreme Court justice. But ladies and gentlemen, they're calling it a Black recession. And I'm in line and inclined to agree. I'm just going to call it what it is, an economic war. And wars have to be fought. You can't take these wars sitting down. And here's the thing. We can be fired up. We can be charged. We can have these discussions. But we cannot perform outrage. We have to diagnose what's currently occurring in our government and continue to fight legislatively and politically, okay, as citizens of this great nation that we built, helped build, and further and evolved. But in the building of this, in the building of this foundation that we have, we're just as American as anyone else, regardless if someone in your life told you to go back to your country. You like, you want me to go back to Detroit? You want me to go back to DC? You want me to go back to Houston? Do you want me to go back to LA? Like, is that where you want me to go back to? That's my country, right? So again, we just tell people maybe you should go back to, Korea, or maybe you should go back to Germany or Great Britain, okay, or Uzbekistan. I don't know. But that's the same energy I have. I wish somebody would tell me go back to a place I've never lived, never grew up, don't have the culture of. I'm just going to tell them go back to where they come from. So let me see what you guys are stating over here. Let me make sure that I'm not ignoring you guys. Let's see here. We special, okay, blah, blah, blah. Somebody advertising on the channel. I wish I had one of my mods in here so we can block that person. Let me see if I can block this person. It says here in Canada, the DEI equivalent is called employment equity, but as usual, Euro Canadians were so hostile to it because it dismantled the invisible white privilege they benefit from. You know, some white people don't believe that white privilege exists, and I understand why. I understand why some white people don't believe that white privilege exists, because they've never benefited from it, or they don't believe they benefited from it. Does that make sense? They keep calling it quotas to dismantle it. This was unfair to white workers. The irony is that the federal government has had so many class action lawsuits launched against them for discrimination. No more, no more 8 alpha contracts. There's still some 8 alpha contracts, and I did a video on that, and I was showing people that these 8 alpha contracts that people will say, businesses who have some economic troubles, that they wasn't just Black, Hispanic, and Asian, they were white as well. They even went to Alabama, and I believe on the panel it was 4 or 5 white businesses, and when it was 1 Black businesses, but nevertheless the SBA gave low interest loans to all of them. So again, a lot of these things that they try to paint a broad picture about DEI, affirmative action, minority this, minority that. If you guys go and read the criteria of these low interest loan or these subsidies that are being afforded, it never says race. It never says, well, Black people will be first on charge if no, it never says race. So again, every demographic of people are benefiting from a lot of these so-called DEI and affirmative action legislations. That's what they like to say. Yup, CRT, what happened there? Oh, it made Euro-Americans feel bad about their past. No, you know what? Let me just comment on that really quickly. We have to put the word some in there, right? We can't speak in absolutes. It made some Euro-Americans feel bad. And majority of those some, as the right would say, that they were majority liberal and on the left, and they were operating in wokeism. See, here's the thing as a Black man. They don't have to be sorry about the past. Whatever your forefathers and foremothers done during, Jim Crow and slavery and Reconstruction, and even till today, y'all don't have to be sorry. But do not lie to the American people, especially Black Americans, that we live in a meritocracy and that we have equality. And we will know, where's Maury Povich, where you at? And we decided that is a lie, because we live in a different reality. We live in a different reality. Some people say, well, the Black community is over policed, and some people will counter that and say, well, the Black community is being over policed because that's where the crime is. At one point in time, and I know this is quite a couple of years ago, that the Black community was one of the safest places to live. But that rapidly changed during the late 60s and 70s. What happened? MLK got assassinated in the 60s. Malcolm X got assassinated in the 60s. And I believe it was, if we look, I can't get I don't have my notes up, but it was between, I believe, the 60s, 70s, maybe early 80s. When did the CIA introduce crack cocaine into the Black community? When did that happen? You guys have been watching Snowfall and American Gangster. Who were the plug behind crack and cocaine in the Black community? Huh? See, here's the thing in America that a lot of people who are emotionally, politically charged, they never want to talk about the root of the problem, right? They always want to talk about the branch of the problem. Well, this is what we're dealing with today. And I ask why. Because if you ask why long enough, if you continue to ask why, we'll start getting to the root of a lot of the issues that occur and that exist in the Black community. And these are not excuses. See, the problem is, the issues are, they have never been taken care of. We had literally legislations on the books that prevented Black people from working. Then they also prevented Black people from being homeless. So I can't work here, I can't work there. The only thing I can do is be a server. The only thing I can be is a home taker. But nobody wants to talk about that. They would like to believe, because again, it seems like people hate history and they don't understand the reason why they're in the current position that they are is because of history, right? Every second past is every second of history. Every second past is every second of history. Why don't y'all believe in history? Do you believe in the stock market? Do you believe that if you would have invested $100 in Bitcoin in 2011, that Bitcoin would have been worth in your bank account 3 to 5 million? You'll believe in history then, wouldn't you? Right? So don't disbelieve because it's a new day that all the issues that were created by the government and these 3 and 4 letter organizations that they were attacking the Black demographic here in America, that it still don't exist today in some, in some capacity. Because then we'd be asinine not to think that. Because that means that every new day, everything is restarted, everything is regenerated, and the past just don't matter, right? You bought your house 15, 20 years ago, let's say at $150,000, but for some reason, now your house is worth $500,000. No. Let's not do that. If you bought your house 15, 20 years ago at $150,000, it's still worth $150,000, regardless of your upgrades. You see, people only want to remember history when it benefits them. Let me see what else you guys got going on. It doesn't matter if the GOP conservatives actively discriminate. Their passivity is the path of least resistance. They stood by silently and let it happen. Okay. All right. Let's see here. FBA needs to circle the wagons. Black women need to stop spending money in Asian-owned hair shops. Okay. I am agreeing. Again, here's the thing about certain statements like, let's see with this person. Let's just call them 9160. I agree with this wholeheartedly. And I think as of 5 or 8 years ago, there was only one Black distributor of Black hair products and hair. Because there was this story that came out, and I could probably look for you guys, but do your research on this. Make sure you know that I'm not lying to you. That the Asian community who deals, not all Asians, the Asian community who was dealing in Black hair products and hair products was literally ostracizing and boxing out any Black person who was trying to be a manufacturer, who was trying to be a distributor. They will only allow you to buy the products in retail. Because they understood that Black people were trying to start their own business. Like, no. We corner the market on Black hair products. And by the way, I would like to believe that most Asian women, most Asian men don't use Black hair products because they have a different grain of hair. but they won't allow anyone. And granted, you would say, well, once you go out and build your own. How can we build our own if we can't even get loans, even if we have a good credit score? You see, everything, and I'm not playing the victim because I know someone's going to say, that is playing the victim. Have there been Black successful people? Yes. There's very few Black millionaires. There's very few Black billionaires outside of entertainment. And what I mean by entertainment, I'm talking about sports. I'm talking about comedy. I'm talking about actors and actresses. I'm talking about anything outside of entertainment. All that is entertainment, right? I mean, are there people who are not in entertainment that are Black and rich? Yeah, there's some people in real estate that have become rich, but we're talking about the majority of Black millionaires and Black billionaires come from entertainment. They fine with us entertaining them, but competing with them in business, man, please. See, colorblind initiatives are duplicitous. Euro-Americans will find somewhat to identify their race in the application process. It's the application process in which most discrimination happens. See, here's another thing. I said this a long time ago. Take race off all applications. Take race off all applications. And somebody said they'll just find another way. Yeah, they'll go by your name. Now, you have a good old American name like, let's say, Nathaniel Johnson. Nathaniel is, I know some white people named Nathaniel. They really have to think, right? And I'm not telling Black folk to name their kids these very generic white names like, call them John Smith. They ain't gonna know who it is. But they will find, some people will allude that they will find, we're talking about racist white people, bigoted white people. We're not talking about all white people, because again, for people who can't, detach their emotions from what I'm saying, they would allude to that, because I know actually some, good white people. But nevertheless, is there ever going to be a way where America can step away from race? Now, unfortunately, I don't believe that in my lifetime. Okay. Now, when you have all these Black football and Black basketball players, Black entertainers, whether they be male or female, if they keep up what they're doing, eventually America is going to be brown. I was watching, my wife and I, she was barely watching it. We was watching the Lifetime Achievement Award, American Film Institute. It was on Netflix. And I know it's old, but Eddie Murphy. And when I looked up there, Eddie Murphy had a white woman. I was like, where's Dr. Umar when you need him? But nevertheless, I'm only making the point because I think it's very, very relevant that if you think there's equality in this country, then I know if you believe there's equality in this country because you are a Black person that made some business maneuvers, right? And you become successful, then you don't believe there's no discriminatory or no racism or there's someone preventing you from being successful, right? Now, granted, I don't believe you should ever give up. I don't believe that you should play the victim. I believe that you should continue to be intelligent. You should continue to be smart and figure out ways to make it in this country. Figure out, ways to stabilize your economics for you and your family. You need to figure out these things. But I guarantee you this: if America erased race from applications, and then the only time that you will see that person is after you hire them, because listen, they want to do interviews. They want to get you on tape. There's like, let's see, let me give me a name. Casey and Thomas, right? Casey and Thomas. I just throw that name out the bag. Casey has a really good background. Okay, he went to Harvard studying this, and then this big Black face come up. They won't do that during the interview, by the way. Well, a great interview. Yeah, look out for the second interview. Yeah, right. Because we need to understand to a certain degree, a lot of jobs are culture, based upon culture. A lot of people want to hire people based upon culture, or they hiring people based upon merit. I don't know. Or they're hiring people based upon their academic achievements and their experience. It's a lot. It is a lot. Again, they do this to confuse people, but we understand not all businesses are discriminatory. Not all. Okay. I want to make sure that, again, we're not just grouping all these things together so we can have excuses why we're not being successful. I'm not doing that. There's a simple comment: economics, not that hard. Definitely no rocket science here. It will backfire because the government services will suffer from shortages and backlog. White privilege does exist. We are not supposed to recognize it or name it. Okay. The established has always loved using a blackface to bash and criticize DEI affirmative action, even thought FBI benefited the least. Where the 60s also, when they started accelerating and putting immigrants into Black communities and setting them up with benefits and resources earmarked just for them. That is absolutely true. That's been proven. Most Euro-Americans don't read anything outside of their own experience. So, of course, they read only one dominant perspective. We are the court jesters and servants of the world. Okay. They will say you're not a cultural fit. Right. They'll say that you're not a cultural fit. Right. Don't get me wrong. There are some Black people who are cultural fit because they grew up in suburban America. They have a certain tone and they have a certain vernacular. They pronounce their words with certain enunciations. Their lexicon is different. Not that their lexicon is larger or their vocabulary is larger, is that they use words the way that they're from the community that they come from, right? Because if you grew up, now if you guys, when I lived in Washington State, I met a lot of Black folk that spoke with a white scent. Does that make sense? They spoke with a white scent. This is no hit towards them, by the way, right? They sound like the environment in which they came. Washington State is a very white state. So if you met someone, you was up in Seattle, you went to a coffee shop, you went to a club, you went to an event, you would start to talk to people, as I call it, a white scent, right? Or you know, LA with a Valley Girl accent. Like they just have this tonality of their voice. And it's not because they're choosing to sound like that. It's because they sound like the environment in which they came, right? If you take an intelligent person who went to school, you know, whether they be, you know, an Ivy League school, you will start to notice if they grew up in a Black neighborhood, you would see the difference, right? Because the majority of their life, they grew up in a Black environment. So they have a different tonality. They have a different vernacular in some regards, not vocabulary, the way they sound when they speak. Have you guys ever been on the phone and you automatically knew this is a Black person? Then you got on the phone and you start talking to a person and you're like, this is a white person. And then you was talking a little further and you maybe got a little more acquainted with them and you were like, you Black? Oh, I'm totally is Black. Yeah, I'm a Black guy. You're like, oh, where you grow up at, man? I believe I was raised. Not where you grow. I believe I was raised and nurtured. I think you guys get what I'm getting at, but no hit towards our brothers and sisters who grew up in predominantly, you know, non-Black neighborhoods. I'm not stating that, but again, culture really matters in some of these regards. Okay, but nevertheless, you guys have a great and wonderful day. Don't make sure you hit the notification bell, subscribe to the channel. I have another video released this evening. Check you guys out then.